Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, we have a story here regarding the much derided hate crime bill, but this one is taking from a viewpoint from a senior police officer. We have a guy called Gordon McCready. He is a chief superintendent. And he is saying that this hate crime bill is very distracting and wrong, and it's stopping police from doing what they ought to be doing. Stopping crime, investigating crime, or at least keeping public order, and also just being out in the community, giving a sense of, confidence in the public. He said, but unfortunately, that's not happening. They can't actually do their day job because they're busy attending to hurt feelings. He said it's not the police's role to be dealing with this. They have other fish to fry, as it were, and that it is because of the wordings of this hate crime bill that police are obliged to investigate all these ridiculous, in many cases, claims. He said, of course, some are genuine. They must be investigated. He said, but most of them aren't. But the police still have to take their time and use resources to go through this process. He said it's fundamentally wrong and it needs to go. And he's not alone. Let's take a look to see why even now senior police officers are calling for it to be repealed. Here goes. So, Top Scots cop, not easy to say, is it? Claims police shouldn't be dealing with hurt feelings in latest hate crime criticism. And of course, he's absolutely right. Especially as there is about 1,100, 1,200 fewer police than there ought to be. So, when you're removing these from frontline duties, from actually looking after things, just to put them on, this hate crime actions and that, it's an awful waste of resources, time and effort. And of course, it's taking policemen out from doing their day job. Chief Superintendent Gordon McCready claimed that there should be more frontline officers and policing in communities. But in order to do this, there either needed to be more cops on the street, as I said, or take them off dealing with the hurt feelings duties. Quite right, too. A top Scots cop has hit out Yousaf's hate crime shambles as he's insisted that officers should not be dealing with hurt feelings. Chief Superintendent Gordon McCready pointed out that if this was the case, then the force needs far more officers on the beat so that crime can be dealt with as well. Now, the channel has, I've got to be careful, I don't want to identify anyone. The channel has a police advisor, a man of many, many years' experience as a detective. Don't want to identify at all, so I'll just leave it there. That advises the channel on policing matters, and you'd be surprised what people think policing is to what policing actually is. It's not what you think, and often even the newspapers get it wrong. So we have this guy, and he advises on that, and sometimes it's quite startling information that would blow your mind. And an example being evidentiary priorities. 2 eyewitnesses is better than 1 eyewitness. 1 eyewitness is better than actual physical evidence. Thumbprints, documentation, things like that are not as important in Scottish law as having, say, 2 eyewitnesses. Seems crazy. We all know how bad eyewitnesses are, but this is the sort of thing that people don't realise. But anyway, he advises us, so that's why I can sort of say things with vicarious expertise, so we say. Anyway, the new law was brought in on April the 1st, and it led to a huge influx of complaints, with Police Scotland inundated with more than 7,000 of these in just the first week. The vast majority of these were not taken any further than the initial report. However, they still have to be reported and logged. That takes time, that takes effort, that takes resources. That takes policemen away from doing what they should be doing. And of course, this is a problem. This is a function of the actual law itself. The hate crime law actually says that every single case must be reported, investigated, and so on. There's no discretion. Senior officers cannot say to them, look, no, don't do it. It's not there, because the law is the law, and it's unfortunate. Anyway, the vast majorities were not taken any further than the initial report has said, with only just over 200 dealt with under the legislation, even though apparently all 200 could have been dealt with under existing legislation. You didn't need this ridiculous new law. But of course, it isn't a hate law, as we've said. It's basically Yousaf trying to bring in an anti-blasphemy law through the back door. Chief Superintendent McCready made the comments on Twitter in response to a complaint from a user that there is no longer a visible force in communities to deter criminals in the first place. And of course, there is half the problem. You see a policeman walking around, sort of puts you in, in second mind whether to commit even a minor crime. He's also the local policing commander in Renfrewshire and Inverclyde, and posted originally about his Friday night spent on the front line. He wrote, "Our response officers are one of the most important facets of policing. On Friday night, I joined them and saw them tackling a large range of challenging and dangerous incidents with partners from knife carriers to flat fires, missing children and bar fights. Being out on Friday night across Paisley, Renfrew and Johnson absolutely affirmed the incredible and relentless work our response and community officers do to protect communities. Thanks to all our partners I saw deployed." And that's because the police are out there doing their day job, doing their actual job. When they're sitting in an office going, so-and-so called me a name, so-and-so wrote something and I didn't like it, so-and-so put a Twitter tweet up saying that something wasn't quite as I want my worldview to be. And it's all bollocks. And yet the police got to sit there, write it down, note it down and go, "Yes, thank you for calling, sir, goodbye." Scrap, bin, load of rubbish, isn't it? A social media user responded to him by airing his concerns about a lack of community policing. He said, "Let's get back to highly visible, routine patrols and community policing. Responding quickly to a call is one thing, but being visible as a deterrent in the first place is better." And yes, it is. Chief Superintendent McCready replied, "Completely agree, something has to change, as though the maths simply don't work. From what I saw in here, one of two things is needed. We need to stay in our lane. Prevention first and tackling crime and the upper tariff of well-being, not hurt feelings. And B, more officers. I would suggest far more officers." The number of cops in Scotland has reduced massively in recent months, despite a vow from the Scottish Government to keep them at steady levels. The Scottish Police Federation claimed that it has fallen to below 16,000. Now, if you think 16,000 across 3 shifts, across the whole of Scotland, doesn't actually amount to a whole hill of beans, does it? They now need to deal with the reports from people claiming that a hate crime has been committed, with advertising claiming that if you perceive this to happen, then you should report it to cops. Scottish Tories are calling for the legislation to be repealed and welcome Chief Superintendent McCready's comments. Scottish Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Russell Findlay, MSP, told the Scottish Daily Express, "Out of touch SNP ministers believe that everyone else is wrong in their blind defence of Humza Yousaf's hate crime law, which could be scrapped," and it needs to be scrapped, don't we? It's a disastrous law from a fetid mind of a moron with so little to do that he's inventing things. Meanwhile, the real problems of society go unanswered. We need to get rid of it and actually, employ maybe 2,000 more policemen. Actually have visible presence on the streets and make all our lives safer. Coming up. Until there is a return to real policing, controlled by senior officers, not politicians, and I think to break up Police Scotland and go back to some kind of regional policing where the senior officers are more in touch with what's going on in their areas rather than having one chief constable sitting in a nice plush office in Edinburgh trying to deal with the problems of Inverness or something on the islands or whatever. You're never going to have good policing. You've just got a response service. And policing is far more than that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and I will say very much, keep watching, keep fighting the good fight, and we will eventually, hopefully one day, win. Bye.